Arthur Schopenhauer believed that life is largely filled with pain and dissatisfaction. According to him, humans and animals struggle to survive in this world against their will. From the moment we are born, suffering begins to increase. Illnesses, heartbreaks, betrayals, aging, and ultimately death. Schopenhauer noticed the weight of suffering in every scene he observed in nature. For example, when a bird ate a worm, he thought the terror and pain experienced by the prey far outweighed the brief pleasure the bird derived from the meal. This reinforced his idea that life's sufferings outweigh its pleasures. He sometimes said that perhaps it would be better if the world were as cold and lifeless as the moon. To him, life was a wheel that turned with constant dissatisfaction and disappointments following brief pleasures. Many people knew him as a pessimistic philosopher. However, he was simply describing life as it was. At the root of suffering was a force that guided all living beings: the will to live. This was the source of our endless desires and cravings. Schopenhauer lived alone, but he wrote extensively. His works influenced important thinkers such as Nietzsche and Freud. His writings attracted attention not to give people moral support, but to reveal the harsh realities of life. He was born in 1788 in the city of Danzig, then part of Prussia, into a wealthy merchant family, now Gdansk, Poland. He lost his father at a young age and had a strained relationship with her mother, Johanna. His mother valued social status and wanted Arthur to pursue a career in commerce, but this did not align with his intellectual interests. Schopenhauer was particularly interested in Eastern philosophy, especially Hinduism and Buddhism. The Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and Buddhist texts influenced his thinking. He was also inspired by the works of Plato, Aristotle, Spinoza, and most notably, Kant. His 1818 book, The World as Will and Representation, formed the basis of his philosophy. In it, he argued that reality is governed by an irrational and blind force called the will, and that this force constantly drives us to pursue our desires, but that this does not bring lasting happiness. The power behind existence. Schopenhauer was greatly influenced by Eastern philosophy in his attempts to understand what lies behind existence. According to him, there was a single force behind everything in the universe: rocks, mountains, stars, plants, animals, and humans. The will to live. This force was unconscious, but it was very powerful and ruled every aspect of our lives. How can we understand that we are under the influence of our will? The emergence of a new desire, every time we fulfill one, shows that this force is always active. We can never say, enough is enough. That is why Schopenhauer said that humans are actually slaves to the will. According to him, this is the fundamental reason why life is miserable. Endless desires and impossible to achieve satisfactions. Schopenhauer also viewed the will and the mind as completely separate entities. Previous philosophers had thought the will was dependent on intelligence, but he argued that the will is an independent force that operates on its own, separate from intelligence. Our perception of the world. Schopenhauer also examined how we perceive the world. According to him, the objects we see are not reality itself, but representations created by our minds. We shape the world with our own perceptions and knowledge capacity. Therefore, reality itself is called the noumenal world, and the world we see is called the phenomenal world. Can we see reality as it is? No, we can only see the representations constructed by our minds. The real world is a pure expression of the will, but it is hidden in our perceptions. Our perceptions are filtered by our innate desires and needs. According to Schopenhauer, since the will is the driving force of our lives, it also shapes our interpretation of the universe. Why is life so awful? Think about it. The sun shines on the world and brings out all kinds of pain, misery, and hardship. According to Schopenhauer, if there were no life on Earth and its surface remained cold and lifeless like the moon, everything would be better. Life is inherently unsatisfying. Pain is inevitable. Human nature, being driven by will, is constantly tested by desires and insatiability. Why is life unsatisfactory? Because when we get everything we want, a new desire emerges. We are never satisfied. When we buy the house of our dreams, we want a car, then a new kitchen, then a vacation, then another house. The search for satisfaction is a constant cycle of longing and disappointment. Schopenhauer argues that pleasures are fleeting, while pain is lasting and intense. The short-lived pleasure of eating cannot be compared to the intensity of pain. Similarly, the pain of a relationship can be more dominant than the happiness it brings. The will makes our desires seem more attractive than they are, and our pains seem less frightening than they are. Methods for coping with life. For Schopenhauer, the world's sufferings are not merely observed. There are also solutions aimed at lightening the burden of existence. One method is asceticism, which advocates abstaining from sensual pleasures and renouncing external delights. That is, partially denying the will. However, this is not suitable for everyone. As a middle ground, Schopenhauer recommends organizing life in a way that minimizes suffering. According to him, our state of mind is more important than status or fame. Instead of pursuing difficult and costly pleasures, it is wise to choose pleasures that are easy and simple to attain. Mental pleasures, in particular, are both inexpensive and accessible, even in old age. It is also important not to care what others think, because the effort expended to gain others' approval is often not worth it. Health is more valuable than wealth or fame. A healthy poor person is probably happier than a sick rich person. Conclusion. According to Schopenhauer, suffering outweighs pleasure in life in general. If today is bad, tomorrow will be worse, and this cycle will continue until it reaches its worst.